I'd like to start by thanking our visitors for being with us today, both here in chamber and viewing remotely. I now call to order the October 7th, 2021 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. Please, if you will, join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Becker?
Here.
Alderman Morose? Here. Alderman Osteen?
Here.
Alderman Ross?
Here.
Alderman Rucker? Mayor Albery?
Here. We do have a quorum. Our first item of business is always mayor's communication, and I don't really have anything this evening. Our next item is citizens' communication. This is a time set aside on the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the board and mayor on any topic that is not a public hearing. And there are 2 public hearings on tonight's agenda. For those here in person, speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes may not be donated or transferred from one speaker to another. Visitors attending via online will be in listen-only mode. Any questions or comments for the mayor and board may be sent to the city clerk at tbethel@osagebeach.org no later than 10 a.m. on the board meeting day, the first and third Thursday of each month. Submitted questions and comments may be read during the citizens' communication section of the agenda. The Board of Aldermen will not take action on any item not listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later date. The Mayor and Board of Aldermen welcome and value input and feedback from the public. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? And if you haven't already signed in, please come up and do so. And I believe you've already signed in, so welcome. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for letting me come tonight. I originally was told to bring my problem to you all, but after talking to the city planner, I may have another option. But my name is Bill Washburn, and we own a house at 1508 Apple Blossom Circle, Dogwood Park subdivision in Osage Beach. While our subdivision has always been a quiet residential area of single-family homes, the last year we've had 2 homes turned into nightly rentals, or namely Airbnbs. We're concerned about residential subdivisions of single-family homes such as ours being turned into commercial properties. The house next door to us was recently listed, and a lot of people looked at it the first day. And no doubt some of those people may have been looking at it as a nightly, short-term nightly rental. Midwest real estate prices are very reasonable to those living in coastal areas. Thus, they're buying these properties for nightly rentals as an investment. One of the homes in our subdivision rents for $500 a night with a 3-night minimum. Neighbors say it's rented nearly every week. These investors are driving the prices of homes up because they can still profit from them. This is driving the price to a level where a lot of people cannot afford these homes for their own use or for a second home. We know you're aware of this activity, but we would like the issue of commercial property and residential single-family subdivisions addressed. This will allow homeowners, realtors, and buyers to know the rules of what to expect. Thank you for your time.
All right, Mr. Washburn, you said you've talked to the city planner. Do you plan on getting with him to discuss this issue?
I think I'll talk to our board.
Okay.
And probably follow up with that.
Okay.
I'm actually substituting for the president of our board tonight.
Okay.
He's out of town and couldn't make it.
All right.
And he asked that I come and make these concerns because we've been talking about this issue.
Okay.
But I would like to have his card or something so I can follow up with this.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go get one of my cards.
Okay.
I do have a comment on this, sir. My father is actually vice president of your HOA, Bill Ford, 1408 Dogwood Lane. This is something I've discussed with him actually because he's brought it up to me regarding zoning, and it's really going to go back to the HOA decks and bylaws regarding rentals. So.
And that's what I talked to him.
Yeah.
Exactly what we talked
Yeah.
And we've had bylaws, and originally they had restrictions, and they've been changed, and we've had different members be elected, and
Yep.
things have changed, and everybody says, well, go back to that one. Well, nobody knows where it is or something.
Yeah, my father's aware of it. Actually, this is our 42nd year in that neighborhood.
That's the route we
So,
intend to follow.
yeah.
Yeah. One of the problems that you're going to find, Mr. Washburn, as you start looking at that is that if you allow something to happen outside of your covenants for your subdivision, it's hard to back it up. It's almost impossible. But good luck with that. And we will be more than happy to have the city planner work with you on that.
You know, it just adds more noise, more traffic.
Sure.
And everything.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Kerry can handle all that with you. All right, anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on. Our first item of business is the approval of the consent agenda. If the board desires, the consent agenda may be approved by a single motion. Tonight's agenda consists of the minutes of the September 16th, 2021 Board of Aldermen meeting, the October 7th, 2021 bills list, and a new liquor license, Tarbiter Peanut Pub, LLC. Alderman Morose, is a liquor license in order?
Everything's in order, sir.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments or proposed revisions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Morose. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Osteen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Our next item is usually unfinished business, but there is no unfinished business on tonight's agenda. So we will move on. Our first item of new business is a public hearing, rezoning case 415, Jeff and Diana Dorhauer. Is there a report from the city planner?
Yes, sir, there is. Good evening, everyone. I got a couple of things for you tonight, and both of them are kind of the same ideology. They're in front of you today, kind of with the same light and the same needs in mind. The first one that we have is Jeff and Diana Dorhauer. They have 1.1 acres of property that's zoned. Currently, it's part of a PUD that we did approximately 12 years ago. This property is on Indian Trace. If you were able to get down there and get by this property, you would see the main issue with this property is the fact that it is more than difficult as it pertains to topographic issue. Okay, it is a very steep lot. It is a rocky lot, like all of our lots are. But in this particular situation, the PUD that it is part of had it scheduled for single-family development. Okay, so in a situation where you're looking at single-family development, you have a piece of property that they could put approximately 6 single-family homes on if they actually could get 6 single-family homes on those. Mr. and Mrs. Dorhauer have brought this to you because they do have a contract to sell this piece of property contingent on it being rezoned to R2 because the new owners or the prospective owners would like to build two-family homes on the more buildable portion that is up at the top of the hill. Okay. This is the kind of thing that we are going to see as a community that is going to take place over the next few years within our future. And the reason that is because we know that we have a shortage of housing. We know this. It is an issue that we know that gives us constraints on economic development and bringing in people to work for our commercial businesses and supplying places for our service industry people to live. And quite candidly, the vast majority of the properties that we have left within our community that can be developed are difficult to develop. Okay. Them coming in and asking for the ability to put in two-family footprints on the more buildable portion, what it does for them is it provides them the opportunity to have more dwellings, and it provides the city the opportunity to have more dwellings in a situation where, quite candidly, if we were to enforce the single-family residential requirement in this area, we would get no more than 2, but probably no more than 1 because it's expensive piece of property to construct. With that being the case, they're looking at two-family or duplex townhomes on this piece of property. It's still less than 4 units per acre, which keeps it in the low density level requirement, which doesn't even necessarily get it to the moderate density, which is actually 6 to 13 units per acre. So this still remains in the low density as pertains to impact on neighborhood, streets, that type of thing, but does give the owner the ability to have some, new owner, the ability to have some flexibility on the units and dwellings that they will build. The planning department took this to the planning commission at their last meeting in September, and they forwarded it to you with a unanimous recommendation to approve.
All right, thank you. As I look around the room, I don't see a representative from the landowner, but I don't want to assume anything. So if there is a representative, or if the landowner is here, please come forward if you'd like to share something with the board. Seeing no one, and before I open the public hearing, are there any questions from the board? With none, I now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to comment either for or against this request? Seeing no one moving forward, I now close the public hearing. And we move on to our next item, which is requesting a first reading of Bill Number 2167, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adopting an amendment to the zoning map of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri by rezoning 1.1 acres as described in rezoning case number 415. City Planner, any further comments?
Nope, nothing further from me unless there's questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve first reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second? Alderman Ross, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The first reading passes. Our next item is the second public hearing for tonight. It's rezoning case number 416, Kyle LeBrew. A report from the city planner, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. This is a request by Kyle LeBrew for a rezoning, actually an amendment to an existing planned unit development on the corner of Bluff Drive and Ski. This is a particular piece of property that Alderman Rucker referenced at the last meeting. Basically, you know, talking about the conditions of the existing 2 duplexes on the property. It is one of those things where we have had, you know, some issues with that particular piece of property, most of them having to do with parking. The original owner and developer built 1 unit, didn't put in enough parking, and then Mr. LeBrew put in a second duplex unit, and they had a number of leaseors or people that were living in those that were overcrowding as it pertained to parking. That's been our biggest issue. One of the things that I will tell you is that as part of this request, he is requesting to upgrade the ability of 2-family homes to 4-plex dwelling units, okay? The original approval had 24. They're removing 11 of those footprints, and they'll be having possibly 13, but one of the 13 is the original existing duplex, which will be more than difficult to reconfigure into a 4-plex because they do have to meet building code and everything to do that. So basically what you would be dealing with in this situation is possibly 12 4-plex units and then the existing duplex unit. So functionally what we end up with in that situation, if we were to approve this request, is 1, just like the last request, we allow them to develop the more developable portion of the property. Because if you've been out there and you've seen, it falls off and it goes down into a large drainage basin that the original developer had units all the way down into. And quite candidly, back at the time that we did that with Mr. Davis, he was advised by both myself, the city engineer, and his contract engineer to do 4-plexes at the top of the hill as opposed to the duplexes that he wanted to do. But he had a unit that he was feeling very strong on and wanted to do that. And probably most important as it pertains to, for example, Alderman Rucker's comments at the last meeting, by upgrading from a duplex to a 4-plex, you're now into multifamily and or commercial required permits, which means they'll have to meet the codes for multifamily and or commercial, which would both involve Ron and his evaluation of the existing units. And it also includes required hard surface parking for each unit to the tune of 2 hard surface parking spaces for anything that has more than 2 bedrooms and 1.5 for anything that is 1.
So there's room for that.
There is plenty of room, yeah,
Okay.
for parking. As part of that, he'll have to come in with each one of his building permit applications with a site plan showing the parking that he is required, showing that it meets all requirements pertaining to our parking lot and our design guidelines. And he will also have to meet the requirement within this, which is no more than 3 accesses to Bluff and Ski, which basically will allow him to build a parking lot that is less like a driveway and more like a parking lot, getting him off of the road and his tenants off of the road, and requiring a more finished look to these units. So the basics of what I'm telling you at this point is that by allowing or by approving this request to upzone, we're actually going to have far more regulatory authority on some of the finished work on this particular piece of property. And the function of it is he doesn't get a certificate of occupancy so that he can start renting them until everything is done for each one of the units that he puts in.
And ADA compliant, I presume?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah. Everything would be current code. These are brand new buildings.
thank you.
So anyway, I took this to the Planning Commission also at the September meeting with a recommendation to approve, and they forwarded it to the Board of Aldermen with a unanimous recommendation to approve.
All right, thank you very much. Is the developer or their representative here this evening? I see no one. Before I open the public hearing, are there any additional questions from the board? Seeing none, I now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to comment either for or against this request? Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed, and we move on to the next item on our agenda, which is requesting a first reading of Bill Number 2168, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adopting an amendment to the zoning map of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri by rezoning 9.3 acres as described in rezoning case 416. Or any additional comments from the city planner?
I have nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions or comments from the board? With none, is there a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
We have a first by Alderman Osteen and a second by Alderman Becker. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading carries. We move on to our next item, which is requesting a first reading of Bill Number 2169, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the expenditure of funds for the Veterans Day Parade 2021 event support request in the amount of $2,000. City Administrator.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board, this is an application for, as the mayor said, the parade held by the Lake of the Ozarks Elks Lodge. We have supported, or the board has supported this event before. Their request is $2,000, and the parade is next month.
All right, Are there any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Alderman Morose.
You know, we rarely participate in this, and I think it's a wonderful thing, obviously, for our city, and I would just like to just choose, say, instead of giving them 2,000, giving them 3,000. That's my thought.
All right, any other comments?
I do have one.
Yes.
Are there any other events on the calendar which would come forward requesting funds from us?
This is first come, first serve. I believe in past years, this is probably the last event that a group has come for funds. I'd hate to say none, but I don't have any other pending requests to go to the board, and last year, this was kind of the last one of the year as well. They do have a budget on the back page, so that might help you in determining too, but.
I agree with what Alderman Rose is stating. I just didn't want some Christmas event to come forward or somebody wanting monies for other events, because this would basically close out our budget for these items this year.
We have not historically had any event requests after this event request, but there's no way to say that there won't be, all right? And I think one thing to consider is the Elks have done a very good job of determining what their funding requests are and what their past expenses have been in the past. And I think that's probably why they've made the $2,000 request. But if the board sees fit to move that up to $3,000, I would ask to have that in the form of a motion, and then we can
Mr. Mayor?
adjust the second reading. Yes.
Based on their budget, I don't want to give an organization just extra money. I mean, our roads out here aren't paved with gold. So I don't disagree with the 2,000, but I do not support the 3,000. I mean, they have a budget that balances with the $2,000 they've asked for.
Right. Well, that was one of the reasons why I made the comment that I did. Like I said, we've had the opportunity to work with the Elks in the past. In years past, the amount that they've requested has been half of the 2,000. The last couple of years, they have used our contribution to this event to offset some costs that their lodge normally has, incurred. But I do believe that as you see their budget, they're in pretty fair shape from that perspective. So that's one of the reasons why I made mention to that, but I'm also giving you the option as a board to do something in addition to that request. So is there a motion from the board if there are no further questions? Alderman Morose.
I'm sorry, I would like to move that we do donate $3,000. There isn't anything that we do as an Osage Beach, especially on the west side, in honoring the veterans. And I think this parade is very important that the Elks has always been spearheading. And regardless of just coming to their budget, I would just like to show them that we truly appreciate what they're doing. And what's another 1,000? I'm sorry, I'm not being frivolous, but I would like to move that we donate the 3,000.
Well, that's certainly, an option. But you have to keep in mind, are you going to ask for, how they plan to spend those funds, since they haven't really identified that yet and they don't show a need for the $3,000 in their budget?
I don't know what their food, I saw what their costs and whatever for food, but they're always there with donation of afterwards for refreshments. And I don't know, I just feel very emotional about the fact that they do that in honor of our veterans, and we just don't do anything else with that on the west side, and I would just like to do that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? I do not have a second, so the motion dies for a second. Do I have another motion to be presented? Yes, Alderman Becker.
I make a motion as the agenda item is presented.
For the $2,000 request?
Correct.
Supporting the $2,000 request. All right, we have a motion on the floor as presented originally. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross. Any further discussion? Yes, Alderman Ross.
I'll just make a comment. The Elks do a great job. I think this is, our only parade in our town every year. And if there's a need to make sure that it's successful for another $1,000, I'm all in. Okay. And so I don't want anyone to take that. I don't. At the end of the day, if the Elks reconsider or after the fact, then things don't go the way they thought, or they come up with something else that they want to do that changes their budget and demonstrates the need, I'm all in. But at this point, I think it's best that we honor their request and then let them demonstrate the need. And I'll leave it at that.
All right, any further discussion? Yes, Alderman Osteen.
And this is just something personal, but every year the YMCA sponsors a giving tree where they put needy children's names on a tree and you buy them gifts for Christmas. It's anonymous. Every year a group of friends and I get together and we go in the last day that the tree is active and pick the names that were never chosen. and we go out and buy presents for those kids. I would like us as a board or the city maybe to spend that $1,000 we still have in the budget for these type of events for something like that, where we are doing good for the community, we are giving presents to needy children. It's very anonymous, but my thought was I wanted to keep a little bit of extra money in this part of the budget for something like that we could come to agreement on.
Okay. Since we're under discussion, I would like to get input from the city attorney, but, and I appreciate, what you're trying to do, Bob, with this particular request, but these funds as budgeted and the way that our ordinance is set up for this does not allow for that. There are certain requirements that have to be met for those funds to be spent. Okay, so, and I'll be real honest with you, I know in years past, there have been other requests similar to yours, but I will tell you, the minute that you open that up, you're going to have more requests than you know how to handle. And that's not what that money was, in the original ordinance was the intent of spending those funds. Any comments from the city attorney?
The legal principle involved is that you need to spend public money for a public purpose. Private charity, a giving tree, is not necessarily a public purpose. That said, there's always more than one way to skin a cat, and creative lawyering can get done most of the kinds of things you want to get done, but it has to be approached very carefully. For instance, the fact that it's a good cause, okay, doesn't mean it's a public purpose. Now, I'm aware that we sponsor parades because we buy advertising. In Jackson County, they used to pay police overtime for the St. Patrick's Day parade because that was a public safety issue. So there are ways to get this done, but to just say, no, we're going to spend $1,000 on this or $1,000 on that because it's a really good idea, you can't do that. The Constitution of the state of Missouri is pretty specific about we spend the taxpayers' money to do the taxpayers' work and the taxpayers' job.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to discuss this ad nauseum offline, but for comments without boring the rest of the staff to death, that'll be it.
I'm sure there's something within the next 3 months that would come before us where that money could be spent.
All right. We do have a motion on the floor asking for a first reading as presented. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve first reading?
So moved.
I'm sorry, I'd have the motions.
First
Yes,
and second.
yeah, I've got a first and second. I apologize. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, we have 3 for, and 1 against. The first reading passes. All right, we move on to the next item, which is requesting both a first and second reading of Bill Number 2170, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, accepting Wren Lane into the city's public road system inventory. Assistant City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. After researching the acceptance of this road with the city attorney, Ed and I found that the requirements that govern the acceptance of this road are not really acceptable in this situation. The municipal code I'm speaking of is Chapter 510.030, procedures, streets, sidewalks, and other places. That ordinance really governs the acceptance of roads when they are turned over to us through a developer or through a group of private citizens that want to turn a road over to us. In this particular case, the board has already approved the construction of Wren Lane in partnership with the Special Road District back on the May 6th board meeting. So in this particular case, we are asking the board to waive the requirements laid out in the specific municipal code I just cited and go ahead and approve it without it going through the Planning Commission. I've already, as I said, I've spoken with our city attorney on this. I've also spoken with the city planner. I think we're all in agreement, and Ed and I are going to be working on a little modification to that particular ordinance that will allow us to bypass the Planning Commission for future acceptance of roads from the special road district. So with that said, I do ask for your approval to go ahead and accept Rin Lane into city inventory. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Alderman Becker.
Mike, in your comments, you said we're waiving certain requirements. What are those requirements that we're waiving?
According to that particular municipal code, a road is required to go through the planning commission before it can be accepted by
Oh,
the
so it's more
board.
of a process, not necessarily,
It's not a requirement, it's a process.
okay, all right.
Planning Commission reviews these type of recommendations or requests based on their conformance with our comprehensive plan and the traffic plan as it pertains to existing streets or new streets coming into the public inventory and the city expending money on them. In this case, the board's already approved the project, gotten the quitclaim deeds to the properties. Everything is basically been taken care of, which is something that I've been speaking to former city engineers about changing for quite some time, because it makes no sense to take to the planning commission because the board's already decided to do it and the road is built, so.
I didn't know if it was building guidelines or anything like that. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve first reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Morose, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes. Second reading by title only of ordinance number 2170, an ordinance of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri, accepting Rin Lane into city inventory. Are there any additional questions from the board? With none, is there a motion to approve second reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Becker, roll call, please.
Alderman Becker,
Yes,
Alderman Morose,
Yes.
Alderman Osteen,
Yes.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
All right, the second reading passes. Our next item requests a first reading of Bill Number 2171, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adopting upon the successful completion of the Pruitt Point TIF project and full payment of the bonds issued therefor, terminating and dissolving the Pruitt Point TIF incremental financing plan, special allocation fund, and the tax incremental financing associated therewith, and terminating the designation of the redevelopment area under said plan as a redevelopment area. Who's going to take this, city treasurer or city attorney? City attorney.
Because Carrie's done all the work for the last 20 years, she wanted me to do this, at least a little thing. Guys, this is what victory looks like. This ordinance terminates the Pruitt Point TIF successfully. Pruitt Point TIF passed in July of 2000. Kind of brain fart there, sorry.
Yeah.
July of 2000. The TIF statute allows TIFs to run for 23 years. This one's run for 21 years and 3 months, okay? It is successfully built and completed on time and on schedule. You read in major cities in St. Louis and Kansas City, you read all about how they have problems with their TIF projects. Well, you guys have one that actually finished and is done. This ordinance is required by the Act. The Act, while we call it TIF, the Act is actually titled, just so you can understand how the lawyers can't write clear sentences, the Real Property Tax Increment Allocation Redevelopment Act. We're just going to stick with TIF, okay? Section 99.850, subparagraph 2, requires that you adopt an ordinance. This ordinance wraps up the TIF process. What this ordinance will do is essentially 4 things. 1, it terminates the existence of the TIF plan. The TIF agreement, that is the agreement with the developer, has already basically been performed and is terminated under its own weight because it's successfully completed. The second thing the ordinance does is it dissolves what we call the special allocation fund. That is the fund that Carrie has managed for the last 20 years through which the money has flowed to pay the bonds. This ordinance will terminate the designation of Pruitt's Point as a redevelopment area under the redevelopment plan, which is also required by the statute. And this ordinance then, by effect, returns to all the taxing entities affected by the tax increment financing plan their regular stream of taxes as if TIF had never been adopted in the first place. In other words, everybody's going to get a little bit extra money, okay? And the bonds are all paid off. We request first reading. If you have questions about the actual money, well, that's scariest business.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve first reading? Alderman Becker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes. Our next item requests a motion to approve the purchase and installation of new controls from municipal equipment for an amount not to exceed $41,158.68 for the KK 37 lift station. Public Works Operations Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the board. Lift station KK37 is obviously off of Highway KK. It's it's tucked in the woods, just to the left side of the entrance to Margaritaville. This lift station was found to be have a number of shortcomings. This lift station is interesting too, in that it's got a primary wet well and a secondary overflow wet well. Over time, the station has been re-engineered, let's say, not in a positive way, to place 2 pumps in the secondary wet well or overflow wet well and 1 pump in the primary. And the reason for that seems to have been that the lead cord for one of the pumps was too short, so they put it into the secondary wet well. That problem has kind of solved itself because, as the board has already proved, the replacement of 2 pumps there, they both had holes in the jackets. And so those pumps are on hand at Public Works at this time. But to this quote, relating to this quote more directly, there are a number of shortcomings, as I said. So the lift station controller there, the controls are as they existed 21 years ago. The controller there has been found to be faulty and has created 3 separate sanitary sewer overages in the last 2 months. We've never able to replicate it. The ghost is in the machine, so to speak, and so that controller is faulty. Also, the phase monitor there is dead. It does not operate. The phase monitor is basically looking for clean power to the station. So essentially what this does is put the station back into the mode in which it was designed for, utilizing the primary wet well as the main means for relaying wastewater out of the station, putting the secondary wet well back in a backup mode, and updating the controls as necessary to avoid any further spilling of the lift station. And so for that reason, I recommend approval for the quote of $41,158.68. And that quote also includes installation baked in. So that's my recommendation, to approve the quote.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Osteen, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Our next item is requesting a motion to approve the purchase and installation of a 7.5 horsepower digester unit with ozone from McIntyre Management Group for an amount not to exceed $33,885 for the KK 37 lift station, plus electrical work in the amount of $6,000. Public Works Operations Manager, please.
To really get a better understanding of this, I'm going to relay back to the handout I hope most of you have. I think we need to take a step back and look at odor control in Osage Beach from a 20,000-foot level. So what I've done is listed on the top of the page all the stations that we have currently, as of this year, utilizing chemical-based odor control or carbon scrubber filters. So we have essentially 6. We have taken Passover Road out, but these are the systems that we're currently utilizing, chemical-based odor control systems. Now, Osage Beach is unique, well, not necessarily unique in this area, but of using a pressurized sewer system, you are basically asking for odor control problems, and that's where they come from. Pressure systems and odor control problems are synonymous with one another. So gravity systems typically don't have these problems because the sewerage is always moving. It's by and large oxygenated because of the airflow that goes through the sewer system inherent to a gravity system. So we're going to have odor control problems. And years ago, that was identified, and years ago, chemical-based odor control systems were identified as a reasonable solution to the problem. Since then, a number of technologies have come down the way that have made that decision questionable at best, and so that's what I'm addressing here today. I'm breaking down here the cost per gallons of the various odor control agents we use, which are bioxide, odifos, alkagen, and then we have other expenditures relating to odor control, being the rental equipment relating directly to sands, the carbon scrubber at $51K, which is also known as the CARS property, and a monthly service fee. So you can see further down the page, the dollars spent annually on odor control hovered around the $70,000 range for the years 2016 through 18. And then really in 2019 really started to exponentially increase. And the reason for that is two. One is the system honestly just was struggling. It wasn't that markedly effective. And so we brought in another odor control agent known as alkagen, and because we were having trouble specifically at Sands Lift Station in controlling the odor near on the strip there near Basin Road, specifically with businesses nearby. So that was another attempt to try and tamp it down, and you can see that the cost just increased every year. So from the years 2016 to 2021, we see 198% increase. Now, odor control and our history with chemical-based odor control goes back much further than that. Prior to this, there were contracts with other vendors. Siemens Group was one, and honestly, I don't have all the documents available to me. They're going further back than I can reach, but odor control here has been a fixture for sure. So what I'm addressing today is a new alternative to chemical-based odor control. This is essentially a digester of varying horsepower based on site-specific conditions, and the engineer, the sales engineer working with me, sizing it per flow and per site-specific conditions. It's a digester. It doesn't use any chemicals. It basically it alters the sewage chemically through oxidation. So basically, we're taking a digester, placing it in with a well. What that does is it pulls the media from the top of the well, forcing it out the bottom, super oxygenating it, and on the way through, disinfecting it with powerful ozone bulbs. Ozone is a naturally occurring gas that occurs in the upper atmosphere, and it has a disinfecting quality. That action essentially turns aerobic conditions in which exist in pressure systems where we're storing sewage, right? We're storing it in a grinder station, and that pumps and it goes to a larger collector, and then it pumps again. So the sewer age is the enemy, because when sewerage is devoid of oxygen, it gases off the offending odor, which is H2S. So what this is doing is super oxygenating the sewerage on site at specific lift stations where we have odor control problems and sending it down the line. This has very low reoccurring costs. Well, let me go backwards one step. So at KK37 on today's proposed agenda, for a total of just under $40,000 with the estimated electrical costs. Just as an aside, I'm having trouble getting electrical costs from contractors because they're so busy, they don't want to waste time making quotes. If I call them and said, please install this, they'll give me a price, but quotes are tough to come by. But a $6,000 install fee for this unit at KK37. Again, the original quote is $33,885 for this unit. and a $6,000 estimated electrical cost. So that lands us at just under $40,000 with install. Essentially eliminates Tantera odor control station. Now, what does Tantera do? Tantera pre-treats the sewerage that goes to KK37, which we just talked about earlier. With the condition of the walkway at the Tantera lift station, Evoqua, the chemical-based odor control group, has said they can no longer deliver there because of the condition of the walkway. For safety reasons, the quote was, "I'll be fired if I deliver chemicals there again." So because of that, we reached out to Cochrane, and they had them engineering a more safe walkway so they could deliver chemicals, and that was estimated, the engineering estimate for that activity was $80,000. Now, so for that $80,000 fee, we can apply that to this, and we can eliminate that station completely. That odor control station rests just behind the horse stables as you enter Tantera. It's a poured concrete bunker-style building with a regular shingle-style roof. That will become obsolete. We'll shut the breaker off and walk away, and we're done with that. No, we don't have to put any chemicals in it. We don't have to make an $80,000 walkway for the pleasure of the chemical company to deliver their expensive chemicals. So the only reoccurring costs for this system are the ozone generating bulbs, and there are 12 of them in this unit for KK37, and they can be shut off in sets of 2. So seasonally, again, odor control is a seasonal problem here at Osage Beach. We can turn those bulbs on and off per demand for the season. And then also some incidental costs with electrical and so forth. So where I'm going with this is I believe that Osage Beach can eliminate all Evoqua odor control sites by next year, by the end of next year, by using funds from the odor control budget, by utilizing the same technology, this method that I'm proposing here with KK37. So if we were to do that and replace all of our odor control sites I have listed there, we could easily save the city $750,000 over the next 5 years. The number, how I arrived at that is I just extrapolated cost spent in 2021 to this year, going out 5 years, adding a modest increase, and then deducting the annual operating costs of the digester and ozone system. So I think this is a good step forward. This system comes with a 1-year warranty on the blower motor and bulb assembly. It comes with a 5-year workmanship warranty and a 100% money-back guarantee if we are not satisfied with its results. So I think it's a pretty safe bet and one that's, economically feasible. So this is essentially the first shot in kind of reducing our chemical-based odor control and our dependency on it. Again, this doesn't rely on delivery of chemicals. It doesn't have very low reoccurring costs. And if we're satisfied with this install, should you approve it, we can move on and essentially move that ball down to the end zone and close this out. So for that reason, I recommend approval of this item.
All right. Thank you for a very complete analysis and recommendation. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Alderman Osteen.
Did you see my eyes glaze over?
It's a ball of yarn, and I need to unravel it as best I can.
It's a lot of information to digest, way over my head. I just wanted to commend you on the research you did on this and your presentation. Very factual, numbers driven. So once again, kudos. I think this was a fantastic presentation you just gave.
Thank you.
For things we all know very little about. So we put our hands in your expertise.
Thank you, Alderman Osteen.
All right, any other questions? Yes, Alderman Ross.
I echo Bob's comments about, I appreciate the information and how it was presented. Nice work. Couple, 3 things. Do we have any current agreements that there's going to be any costs involved to get out of them or to return equipment or anything like that as we head down this path that haven't been identified here yet?
No. So Mr. Rucker has reviewed the contract. The contract is part of an annual renewal that we renew every year. Obviously, those costs don't go up every year, they go, or they don't go down, they go up. So we signed that contract. That contract ends in April. And I think by the time we get to April, we can easily make the decision to let that contract expire and not renew it. We will have to pay, the rental fee going through as we pay every month for the CARS property. That's $1,100 a month for the rental equipment. We're renting equipment from them in some sites, and some sites we own it. So once that expires, they can come and get their stuff.
So the rental agreements expire within a year, every year, or are those?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And so if in fact this new system were to fault, the blower motor seizes up or whatever, do we have any systems or abilities to be notified of that? Or will it just have to be through periodic inspection?
Periodic inspection is a big part of that, which, as you know, we're ramping up. These three-phase stations, which all of these are three-phase stations, get visited once a week.
Okay,
The other side of that is just the olfactory senses. Like, we'll get an odor complaint, right? If we get one, that'll be a telltale sign that we need to be directed out there, and there could be something wrong with the system. But there's no communications involved with it, I think is where you're going with that. There's no SCADA. It's not hooked up in a technological sense.
and then the last thing from a broad perspective is, this is gonna potentially become, depending on what the board decides, part of our design guidelines. So I'm trying to understand who that affects. Does it affect a guy putting in a strip center? Does it affect somebody that has put up condos, a person putting in 2 duplexes? Where does this change what they have to provide and make somewhat of a significant impact on their system that they're developing and gonna hand over to the city? Because this will be required at some level, I would assume. And if we don't know yet, that's okay.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Can you rephrase it?
Do you understand what I'm asking, Mike? Because you referred to that.
I think I do.
What triggers the developer to be required to
put this
install
in.
this?
Oh,
What
yeah,
level?
and I'm going to address that in the next item.
Okay,
We don't have the requirements in our specifications for, let's say, topsider. Topsider is going to be a pretty major development, high profile. We don't have a mandate, for lack of a better word, to impose on them these odor control systems. It just hasn't been addressed in years past, and so for that reason, we're bringing that up in our next item. But great question. We're going to change that, and in major stations, for instance, like topsider, we're going to put those specifications in there that odor control must be considered, because really my fear is it's well-founded that in a major station in a high traffic area, if it starts getting odor complaints and we took it over, that lands directly in my lap. And then I'm doing,
I get that, I completely
then I'm
understand.
chasing it. Yeah,
Okay.
to your point.
Do we have any experience with this either through, I know your history in Public Works or other cities that have force main systems that have used this, and
Yeah.
have they had good luck?
Yeah, very good luck. I have reached out and called a couple references, one in Texas and one in Kansas, and they're pleased with it. Now, these units, we're definitely not the first kids on the block to use this stuff. This stuff's been around for 30 years. And it's just really now taking off in the United States. They've been using it in Asia. They've been used heavily in Europe. 7,000 of these units just from this group. There are probably others out there. This is just, they're adding, jazzing it up with ozone bulbs for disinfection. 7,000 of these units have been employed with that 100% money-back guarantee. They've got no takers.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second? Alderman Osteen, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Our next item is requesting a motion to approve the purchase and installation of a 5.5 horsepower digester unit with ozone from McIntyre Management Group for an amount not to exceed $34,843, plus electrical work in the amount of $6,000. Public Works Operations Manager.
So to continue on with the theme that, one that Mr. Ross already brought up, topsider. So topsider, again, a major development, It's going to have, I forget, is it 214 plus units?
140.
140, thank you. Doubling it. A couple problems with this one is that, again, we don't have a mandate to imply that the developer must put this equipment in because we didn't have it in our specifications when it was originally approved. We have reached out and more or less asked them to do that. That's a nice thing if they were going to do it. I'm not at all confident that they'll do that. I guess I wouldn't if I was a developer, but nonetheless, what this is utilizing the same technology I have proposed with KK37, and I had the sales engineers design the system around topsider. They got the plans, they engineered it from the ground up to be a sound odor control system to address topsider. Essentially, if we don't do it, you of course have the option to not do it, but what this is this will solve it. It's an unknown, and I don't like unknowns, nor does anyone else. However, this station was originally right in front of the entrance. As the engineers will say, this site is very tight, very, very tight. They've since moved this lift station to the back of the building just in the last revision, just in the last couple weeks, which is a better spot for it. However, with the winds coming off the lake, I'm not at all confident that those smells aren't going to wrap around to the front of the building, in front of the loading dock, and then I'm right back where I was. I'm going to be facing the odor control complaints because we accepted this station as is from the developer. This is a plan to know that we're not going to have odor control issues there. Do we have to do it? No. Should we do it? We may end up doing it anyway. So as development ramps up and more occupants come into the buildings, and there'll be other buildings, it's just the first one, we could maybe get by with the first building. We may not with the second. We may immediately have odor conditions on the first building. It's an unknown. Odor control is a tough nut to crack, but this is a solution that's presented to you holistically from the ground up to take care of odor at topsider. Now, again, I don't need to mention that topsider is a high-profile project. It's kind of a hood ornament, as I call it. It's going to be a local and regional attraction, and what I don't want is odor control problems like I have at Sands. Like that's my fear, basically. And if you want to say this is based off fear, it's a reasonable assessment. So I will leave that up to the board, but I do recommend this as a solution, getting out in front of the problem, and I'm open to any questions you might have.
We've got.
Carrie, you use the mic so online.
We've got somewhere 40 condo developments in this community. And we're looking at doing this for just topsider. I mean, they all have the same type of system that's being put into topsider now. Is this something, that with whatever solution you're looking at, putting these digesters in, that the other condominium developments are going to experience what you're fearing when we stop using chemicals, necessitating them getting something put in like you're recommending for topsider, because topsider legitimately is no different than any of the rest of our condominium developments, and actually smaller by way of number of units.
It is a little different in a couple different ways, and I'll explain what those are. One is the proximity to the building. Again, as the consultant engineers that designed this called it 5 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. The location of the actual wet well is very close. We're talking you could walk it off from the building itself. So because of that tight space and the way this was designed, you have no distance from the wet well where sewage is stored to the front door. The other problem, I don't want to call it a problem, the other site-specific thing here is that you must consider is originally this was designed with a large underground cistern overflow tank. Now what they've done is basically incorporated that overflow control tank into the wet well. So what you've got is a huge wet well. And it's really going to be really easy to put solids and stuff up that incline within that cistern underground. So what I'm getting at is it is definitely different. When you have more surface area of sewerage, you have more loading area for H2S. So you have more surface area to gas off H2S. The potential of that is definitely here, where it's not with some of the other installs that you've talked about. This is not the same animal as what we've seen before. You're right, it's not a huge station. It's a duplex 20-horse station. There are stations this large, but because of its proximity and because of its design specifically, I have concerns for odor control here.
Well, my concern was just the fact that, every one that we have done over the past 25 years have been done to the design guidelines that we have now, and they all won't have the, digester that you're talking about within their specific system. And I guess what started wrapping through my mind was we're gonna stop using the chemicals, and not every one of our pump stations is gonna have a digester, or all of our condominiums going to start, because I don't care where the pump station is in comparison to the building. If they all start having odor control issues, people are gonna smell, unpleasant.
If I understand you correctly, well, none of the condominiums are employing chemical-based odor control at this point. And my list basically states which ones we are, which one we're not. None of them are at.
So they don't use an odor control now, so you're
Correct.
basically saying that this one is different enough to require it to have odor control, whereas the other ones would not require their own odor control.
That's correct, exactly. Yep.
It's more hybrid in nature compared to what we normally have out there and
It
have
is,
installed in the
It
past.
is, by how it's designed, that's correct. Again, we have options. We can do this after the fact. We can do a wait and see how bad it is. We can employ lesser means. We have smaller aerator that we use in-house for smaller grinder stations that we could try that. This is just presented as a solution for this particular development. And then to Mr. Ross's question, if you will, it's a great point. We need to get out in front of this and identify stations that we believe, when we believe the engineer also, when there will be odor control concerns, we can basically mandate that they make accommodations for odor control. And as I've said, we don't have that now.
How difficult will it be to identify, for example, the uniqueness of this particular station, okay, and to put requirements in our ordinances and guidelines that would mandate, that in that, in a particular unit?
That's a great question, because odor control, again, is a very, there's a lot of nuance to it. You can't just say by engineer standards, it's this many units, it's this many horsepower. Odor control is a finesse industry, and so which is why I say we could wait and see. But you could be seeing me bring this very same quote back to you because I am getting killed with odor control complaints. It's a what if. I'm presenting it in that matter. Again, it's up to the board whether they want to pursue this, but I'm putting it out there as an option. And you're right, we'll have to reach out to other cities and how they've employed that language mandating odor control and how they've done it. I will reach out to some engineers for sure. It's kind of like you're going to know it when you see it. And I had concerns on this. I know Cochran has even mentioned to me, like, they're not addressing odor control here. And like, we both kind of agreed that this would be one you'd want to consider. But again, there's no hard, fast rules on odor control. It's placement, it's residencies, it's determining, are they seasonal? And so there's a lot to it. Again, it's an option going forward, but this is a belt suspenders solution that we can confidently say there's not going to be an odor control problem here at Topsider.
Right.
So there's options.
Well, and quite frankly, I mean, I understand why you're coming to us and asking for this now. And while I understand that you all have gone back to the developer, asking them to either, install this on their own, okay, or, to at least, maybe share the cost with us. But the fact that a permit has already been issued, and it is not currently in, our design guidelines, is one of the reasons why, you're willing to step up to eliminate the potential of odor, especially for this complex. So, but one thing that I would like is that I don't want to find, should the board decide that this is what we want to do, I don't want to find ourselves in a position sometime in the possibly near future with as much development as we're seeing going on down here and as much demand as we have for growth and for housing units, whether they be condos or whatever, generally large condos, because right now there's a significant shortage in the supply of that, product, all right? I don't want to find ourselves having to do this again. I do believe that this is a developer cost, and it should be borne by the developer when the system is built and then turned over to us, and then we are responsible for its ongoing maintenance. Okay. Any additional questions or comments? Alderman Ross.
So I'm trying to understand, it sounds like, and so I'm curious if this is a reasonable caricature of what's occurred, the developer of the topside property has decided to, maximize density or something close to that at least, and because they chose to put their retention basin near their front door, which I'm sure was advantageous to the developer,
Yep.
we are concerned that we're going to have a problem in the future, okay? Now, what I'm trying to understand is that it sounded like that they've changed their plans a couple of times on the sewer system?
They have.
Okay. And so were those changes done before the permit was issued or after?
I don't know the original permit issue date unless someone else on the board.
So I'm a little surprised that I guess what I'm trying to say is I agree with John. I think this should be borne by the developer. They chose to
I completely
maximize
agree.
density and put a big pool of sewage in front of somebody's front door. Okay, well then they need to solve that. And I don't understand honestly why we don't have some kind of ability to ensure, other than I realize we don't require odor control, but we also have the ability to approve or disapprove designs. And apparently the engineer brought up somewhere along the line, there's no odor control here. This looks like an opportunity. So have we approved that final design?
Dave, do you have any information on any of that as it relates to when the permit was issued as opposed to maybe a redesign?
I was not aware that a final approval had been given on plans.
It hasn't.
It hasn't?
No.
Okay. Then I'm not sure I understand why we're convinced that we need to incur this cost. I don't disagree that there may be good reason to put it in, but I'm trying to understand why we believe we need to incur the cost or we have no other choice but to incur the cost.
Again, I'm not sure, and I agree with you that we should not incur these costs, and that's why we're going to fast-track language to avoid this in the future,
Right.
because as I
Understand?
understand it, there's several of these stacked up behind it. I want to fast-track that language, get it into our specifications, so we don't do this again, but we're
If it was
stuck.
here tonight, I'd
Right
be
now,
helping vote for it.
I believe we're stuck. I mean, if you decide not to do this, again, I can try my best.
Do we not have the ability to tell them since the final design, we believe, let's just assume the final design is not approved for this sewer system, to say, nope, we are headed down this path and we're going to require this, period. Now, I understand we could always end up in a court of law with a bunch of lawyers, Ed and so forth, kicking this around, but for $40,000, and from what I understand of the success so far of the Topsider program, I'm not convinced that $40,000 is going to make a huge difference, other than it's just a nice thing to have if they don't have to spend it.
It's a fair statement, and that's a decision we'll have to make. I'm just presenting this as a solution for a potential problem, and that's really as far as this goes. It's all born out of the fact that we don't have it in our standards currently, and that's, again, something we're going to fix soon.
Dave?
My experience permitting projects through cities is until you have a final permit, any additions made to code or design guides become a requirement of your project. So that's what I've experienced with other cities in the past. I think there's an option.
If that's the case, that runs contrary to what I was understood and what I was told. So that's very optimistic to hear that. If that's the case, then
Obviously,
we
that's
need
a
to
city-by-city decision, but
Yeah.
that's what we see permitting projects through other cities.
I think that's something we should explore.
Well, if we're going to go that route, then I guess the question would be how quickly, I mean, and we haven't issued the final permits, for that station, how quickly can we, modify or rewrite, our guidelines, before we have to permit that station? Can we do that in time before the permit is actually issued? If that's what the board is leaning towards.
I would like to see us consider something that by the next meeting that gets put into place that says.
I think that could be done by the
Odor
next
control will be, requested and reviewed and so forth at the discretion of either the city engineer or the public works operations supervisor, and put that in 2 weeks, assuming that 2 weeks is enough time.
I think it is.
And then from there on, you guys have got discretion and gives you guys the ability to develop something that makes sense. I'll trust that you be fair. The rest of the board will have to agree, but I think that's the best way to approach this. And at the end of the day, I think the right costs will be incurred at the right place.
As I understand it, Joe Feldman, the engineer with Cochrane, recently sent the most up-to-date plans back to the developers with a few changes. And that's kind of where we sit right now, is the developer has some plans with a few recommended changes, and we have not gotten those back. We went back and forth on those plans several times. And so even though it is a working process, I don't think we have a final plan approved yet.
Are those recommendations or what has been sent back, to the developer, does that include this digester unit?
Yes, it does.
It does?
It does, and the developer has reached out to this group asking questions about electrical components, electrical requirements.
Right.
I don't know how far that's going to go. At this point in time, as I'm in front of you, I don't know what they're going to do or not do. So
Okay.
I wish I had more answers than that.
Alderman Osteen.
For the record, this development is already sold out. They do not even have the plans finalized, but pre-sales have all sold every unit. So the developer can't come back saying this is going to be a budget issue because they're not putting in a condo complex, keeping their fingers crossed that they're going to get some good sales. The complex is already sold out. So I would say it's definitely something we should put back onto the developer and let them pay for this.
I wouldn't disagree if we have the ability to do that. I would not disagree.
I mean, I think it's odd that pre-sales already sold out, not even built.
Well, and I think basically when we talk about, I don't want to get in this from a real estate perspective, but, they basically have deposits on their units.
Yes.
They haven't really pre-sold because they cannot pre-sell.
Well,
But basically,
large
what you're right,
deposits on the
interest
units.
has been expressed on every proposed unit.
Large
So,
deposits.
Okay, all right. Well, is it, I guess what I'm hearing and I guess would propose is that we put this on hold, Ed?
Yeah.
That we put this on hold pending a presentation or having our Public Works Operations Manager bringing a modification to the guidelines to us, and before we actually issue a authorization or permit, for this system at Topsider. Yes.
Just a suggestion, the chair might want to entertain a motion to hold this item over to the next meeting pending further staff work.
All right. We've got that on the floor.
So moved.
Is there a motion?
Moved.
We have a
Second.
first, Alderman Ross, and Alderman Morose is a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve that? Is there a motion? I mean, do I, it's going to be all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Kevin, if you can, hopefully have something for us by the next board meeting.
I think that can be done. Yes, sir.
Modification, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. One second. All right. Our next item is requesting both a first and second reading of Bill Number 2172, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 2083, adopting the 2021 annual budget transfer funds for necessary expenses for sewer department operations, system repair, and lift station improvements. City Administrator, and this may change with
I was just
with
gonna
what was just
say,
proposed.
I am just the money in the budget person, so, but this is it's a combo budget adjustment based on the three preceding items, which one of them has been held over. But given that it's not the majority of the budget amendments, should that not come to fruition, we can always reverse that piece. There's three other pieces in this, so I'm still going to recommend, here's a few line items that we would like to amend the budget based on the department's request. The one is the repair of systems, adding $42,000 to the KK37 that was just approved. The second line item, lift station improvements, a request to increase that line item by $51,000, a combination of the two digesters that were one just approved, one held over. However, that is being offset by building improvement savings. So I'm asking to decrease that line item and move it over to lift station. So there's no net bottom effect, even if this one item doesn't get paid or wrote the check by us. The next one is due to increased cost and use. There are several fuel line items and some O&M that departments are going through as they're working through their budget, and Public Works just happened to get me their request in first. So it's a request to increase the gasoline fuel line item, again, due to gallon cost plus usage, but also offset that by another line item that didn't see all the money spent out of that line item. So I am requesting a first and second so I can get it in the financial statements and move forward as we proceed with the budget process.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Ross, is there a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Osteen, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes. Second reading by title only of ordinance number 2172, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 20.83, adopting the 2021 annual budget, transfer funds for necessary expenses for sewer department operations, system repair, and lift station improvements. Are there any additional questions? With none, is there a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Becker, roll call, please.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Osteen,
Yes.
Alderman Becker,
Yes.
Alderman Morose,
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
All right, second reading passes. We move on to our next item, which is requesting a motion to approve the modification of the Osage Beach Sidewalk Improvement Project. Assistant City Administrator, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. I'm not going to go through this in detail. I think we all know the details here of this. I'm just going to kind of summarize it. At the beginning of the year, we had budgeted $110,000 to make drainage improvements to 12 different driveways along the parkway, generally between the Nichols Road exit and the Case Road exit. As we went through the year, Cochran had worked diligently to try and get those 12 business owners to sign the required waivers and drainage easements. And we were only successful with the one. The one is located at 5481 Osage Beach Parkway. We have an updated estimate included in here for the work at that location. That estimate is for $17,205. So with the board's permission, I would like to bid that out to have the work for that one driveway done. I do recommend approval.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Alderman Becker.
So for clarification, if this motion passes, are we simply approving Mike or Kevin to go out and get bids for this project?
Yes, you are approving me to go out and get bids for this project. Because of the financial level, they will probably be informal bids that we will go out and get.
Not just bids, completed. This is a motion to complete start the process to do the project. The
This
scope.
passes, the project will get done no
Yes.
matter what the bids come in at.
Well, if it's over,
The amount.
if it's over 25 grand, it would come back to you, or unless we have a big dollar difference, it probably will not come back. It just depends on the,
Since the city administrator's authorization level is 25,000, the intent of this is to, authorize, moving forward with the project.
So we don't,
unless you want
I
to put
guess
a
my problem
cap, a
is
cap on
we're
it.
approving this, could be approving to do this, but we don't really know the cost, and that was my hang-up with this project from the very beginning.
So more appropriately, to amend a motion, should you get to that point, is not to exceed the engineer's estimate. You could do that, and that way, if it does exceed the engineer's estimate, then even though it may be under mine in total, there's a cap that you've put it on. That would be one offer of a suggestion.
Right.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that.
Okay. Any additional questions? Yes, Alderman Osteen.
Apparently, the cheese stands alone, if you know what that means.
Right.
When I look at projects such as this, I ask myself, how and who does this benefit? We have approved many projects which benefit a small amount of people, but those are usually for needed infrastructure, for roads or water and sewer. So even those projects may only benefit a handful of people, they benefit the community overall. This project to me is strictly cosmetic in nature. The current ingress and egress to this business does not negatively impact their sales or their profitability. It's not inhibiting their ability to do business. So I ask myself, how and who does this benefit? It certainly doesn't benefit the city. It doesn't benefit the community. I don't see that it even benefits this specific business. I reviewed the documents that we had sent out to these businesses regarding this project. Those documents did not state that we were given a promise or assurances that this project was going to move forward. To me, they were strictly gathering information and trying to gauge the interest level. So the argument that we have given our word to do this project is a moot point to me. That is why I strongly oppose this project. If the board decides to move forward with this, then I obviously need to rethink my definition of wasteful spending. There you have it.
All right. Any additional questions or comments? Yes, Alderman Ross.
I'll do a rebuttal on this.
I'm sorry, I've already recognized Alderman Ross since he had his
Okay,
hand
if you
up.
want me to-
And then I'll
recognize me.
recognize
Oh, okay. I'm
Alderman
sorry.
Rose.
I thought you said.
Yes, no, I'm
So-
sorry.
Excuse me.
I can understand how someone might think this is wasteful spending because it just goes to one business. In the end, in my mind, the city flat screwed this up to start with. Should have never been an issue in the first place.
That's right.
We've done 3 or 4 phases on this road, and this one phase is a big problem because we changed the design, we slid it through. I don't know why. That was never explained. And we've just tried to take accountability on our side through this process to make things right. If you have a customer that comes to your business and you don't serve them well and they're not happy, you try to make things right, okay? And we got complaints from folks, okay? I don't know back when whether the complaints came from here. A lot of them were around the post office, and the people that own the Tallman property chose probably not to mess with all the legal mumbo jumbo that came with this request when we went back to these people, which I, again, will restate, don't believe was necessary in the first place. It wasn't necessary on all the other ones that we did up the Parkway, but it's the lawyers and it is what it is, okay? I just think this is a matter of integrity. We had an issue with something that was not done correctly. Some aldermen, because be quite honest and frank, nothing else was being done about it, decided to go out and try to create some accountability and some trust, okay? And if we choose not to do this after going through this 4-year process and say, you know, hey, well, it'll be something, then I completely understand how people sit out there and go, well, we talked to the city about it and they talked about it, but nothing was ever done. I don't know how many times I've heard that, okay? I'm surprised, just like Phyllis, that only one person decided to choose. I would have thought it would have been much better, but it is what it is at this point. But I still think there's a matter of integrity here, and while I realize that some people could think of it as completely wasteful spending, I think sooner or later we have to be accountable, and we need to, for lack of a better term, make sure that we do our best to please our customers at a level of integrity that we would all expect from the city. And so at this point, I support it still.
All right, anything else, Alderman Ross?
No, that's all I
Okay.
have, sir. Thank you.
Alderman Morose.
You know, I couldn't say anything better than the way Alderman Ross has just expounded upon, because this has been going on for some time. And he and I, at one time, went up and down the Parkway and talking to businesses that some were disgruntled about the entrance of the bump or whatever, and said, you know, whatever. So, and then all of a sudden, then it just went to table 13, and then the next thing I know, a couple years later, now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. And it was finally going where they were approached again, and only one business did adamantly say, I would really like to have my entrance driveway rectified. I'm not happy with it, and if the city's willing to improve it, so be it. And as Alderman Ross said, you know, this is where we were from the very get-go. I am appalled that the one entrance exit of the post office that is really the bump, but the business said, no, it's all right. So, you know, we're not going to do anything because that's part of their business and that's what it is. So, but anyway, I just think this, like you said, the integrity, let's move up, and we've asked them to say it, that we would do something, and to say no now, no. I think we should step up and honor our business's request.
All right, any further comments?
I'd like to say one more thing, please.
Certainly, Alderman Osteen.
I believe this is a lose-lose situation for the board and for the city.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite
I
understand.
believe
that.
it's a lose-lose situation either way. Whether this passes or not, once again, we still have egg on our face. Even replacing that one bump, we still lose in this situation. It's not going to change the integrity of the board. It's not going to fix the problem because the problem still continues to exist with all of those other businesses. I would like to state, and this may be for future conversation, that for future reference, projects such as these that come about, we need to, as a board, set some type of guideline for responses, for percentage of people that are on board to move forward with it. So we're not in a situation, once again, where 12 businesses have been approached, only one says yes, and we feel obligated to continue moving forward with the project. So we need to set more parameters for projects such as this moving forward. But that could be a different discussion. I'm not sure when and where, but just wanted to throw that out.
Okay. All right, any additional comments?
Can I?
Yes.
I'll just say, Bob and I don't know, I'm not convinced that we've been fully compliant with that, but this was the project that started a conversation that said that the board would see design guidelines on sidewalk and so forth projects. And I know that, for example, Dude Ranch, those, we got an opportunity to do that. And that had not been part of the practice before. So at least the board got an opportunity to see that, you know, why are you designing this driveway, all these driveways down this let's call it 2 blocks or whatever it is, completely different than the last 10 that you just did, okay? What's going on here? And I don't know that we would have caught it for sure, but at least we actually knew we had the opportunity to see what exactly we were voting on that didn't happen in the past. So we're, you know, trying to make some things happen. This one's just been going on for so long. So, but I completely agree. That was the root cause back then. We approved, you know, we want to do this project and, you know, trust the engineers, and don't get me wrong, it's not that I distrust them, okay, but that was basically the message, trust us, and this is what we ended up with through trust. And sometimes why it's important to trust but verify. And hopefully we've got a better verification process now than we did. So I'll leave it at that. That's all I have.
All right, any further comments? Yes, Alderman Becker.
Is now the appropriate time to make an amendment to the motion?
Do we need to do that, or can we just make a motion with the amendment, with the proposal of a not to exceed the engineer estimate of $17,205? I think we can do it.
But I think the simple thing, if Alderman Becker's interested, is he could make a motion to approve this with a lid of the $17,000.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so go ahead and just make a motion
Okay.
and include your not to exceed.
I move to approve this project as stated with a cap at the engineer's estimate of $17,205,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed.
Okay, all right. Do we have a second to that motion?
A second.
Alderman Morose. Any additional questions? With none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We have a 3-1 vote.
It's a voice vote.
A voice vote, and motion carries. All right. Our final item this evening is requesting a motion to approve the acceptance of Henson Road and surrounding property into city inventory through a road relinquish agreement with the Missouri Department of Transportation. Assistant City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. So this is the last item tonight, as the mayor said. We currently have a warning siren that is almost smack dab in the middle of the Topsider project. And they're kind of working around it right now, but we really need to move it out of their way as quickly as we can. I've been working with Eric Howe from Cochran Engineering on this, trying to get this done as quickly as we can so that we can let that project proceed after we remove it. So we found a suitable location for the siren with the help of Chief Davis and the vendor that helps us with the siren maintenance. And that location is located off Passover Road between Passover Road Interchange and Parkwood Circle. So essentially, if you're coming from the Parkway and you go over the bridge, over the overpass, and you go past the exit that takes you onto 54, there is a little driveway, if you will, called Henson Drive, that's just to the left, just past that. The only thing that is currently on that road is sewer station 29.5, our sewer station. Other than that, there's nothing else on the road. The siren will be located in the small field between Henson Drive and the interchange there. We had approached MoDOT about just getting the small field, and they were like, no way, you're either taking it all or you're not taking any of it. And so this road relinquish agreement starts the process of us taking over that road. It will allow us to get a temporary permit while we kind of work through the paperwork to officially move the road into our inventory. So I am asking the board permission to proceed with this acceptance, but I'm also asking permission to allow the mayor to sign any further documents that might be needed to accomplish the property transfer, and to allow the city clerk permission to record such documents so that we don't have to come back to the board multiple times to kind of deal with this. So I hope I've explained that properly. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer them. I recommend approval.
All right, thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board? Alderman Ross.
So do we not have like a lease, or how do we have these sirens placed did we not have the ability to have it there in the first place? Why do we have to incur the cost to move it, I guess is what I'm trying to understand.
We are not incurring any cost to move this pole.
Okay.
Topsider is incurring that cost. I'm
Okay.
sorry if I left that out. I apologize.
That's fine.
All we're doing is trying to
understand.
work with MoDOT to make sure that we have a place
place to
for
go.
it on the other side.
That's all I have, thank you.
Other questions or comments? With none, is our motion to approve?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Osteen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We now move on to communications. Communications from the board. Alderman Ross.
I have nothing. Hope everyone has a great evening.
Alderman Morose.
I have several comments. First of all, I would like to thank the city for the opportunity in going to St. Louis to the MML State Conference. It was a great experience, good class sessions, and great camaraderie with the people that did go, considering 2 other aldermen and our assistant city administrator and our city attorney, and anyway,
clerk and
it was
Clerk.
just super fun. And I must say, there's still charges lingering, and I don't know how we're gonna deal with that, but we will eventually. It may
That sounds
come
like a
to
personal issue,
fruition.
Alderman.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I said, that sounds like a personal issue, Alderman.
Anyway, that's foregoing with our city clerk, and people that were there will understand, but it'll come out, I know, eventually. Also, I would like to welcome a new business on the west side of the Glazed Bridge, Twisted,
Tony's.
Thank you. Twisted Tony's. And I haven't been there yet, but I understand that their sandwiches are very good. They're right across from the Loto Lounge and right close to the Elks Lodge. And so it's great to have another little business. And also it's exciting to see this enormous building, Macadoodles, that's going under construction by KK Expressway. I have been to one of their establishments in Branson and also, I think also in Columbia, but it's a great asset to our area. Liquor store, convenience store. And other than that, I just want to comment about some of our charitable organizations. Our community foundation had a wonderful fundraiser this past weekend and had a great response of 150 local people in gathering money and silent auctions of contributing to the local charitable organizations. This next week, we're going to be having our Citizens Against Domestic Violence that is having their annual fundraiser at a luncheon at the Lodge of the Four Seasons. And again, it's great community support. But this Saturday is our annual City Fall Festival at the City Park, and the weather's going to be fantastic. And I know Mike and our park director has been working diligently and making that a success. Also, our Harbor Hop is coming up Saturday, which will be great. We've got a lot of locations around the lake. Be sure to stop at Kelly's Port because I'm going to be one of the dealers. Just want to say that. And other than that, I think kudos to our Public Works Director with a lot of work that he's put in, a lot of research, and we certainly do appreciate it, Kevin, with what you are doing, and we're happy to have you. Thank you. In our police department, we have some new officers, or at least have been doing their experience and service to our community, and we certainly appreciate that. But I think our city of Osage Beach should be very blessed with the growth and what we're looking at of what's coming up around us, and just pray that this pandemic will be over with soon. Thank you.
Alderman Becker.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Alderman Osteen.
I would just like to thank my fellow attendees from the MML conference for putting up with my crazy stories. Alcohol
It's our pleasure.
Alcohol is a truth serum.
Our pleasure, Bob.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, we move on to staff, city administrator.
Well, MML, it was so nice to be back in person. With COVID, we've not got to spend a lot of time with other cities and other elected bodies, so I will say it was nice to go to MML with you all, but it was also very nice to just be back in person, and I just was very pleased. So MML is here next year, so we'll be the host city, so hopefully anytime we rotate into Osage Beach, I know a lot more staff members go, so. Yeah, mark your calendars, Margaritaville. So other than that, that's all I have.
All right, city attorney.
I too appreciated especially the idea that MML was back in person, which is a far more effective way to learn stuff and get stuff done. And for my fellow staff members who didn't get to go, what you truly missed and would have enjoyed greatly was watching Gina, who has now been promoted to the head table with all the poobahs at MML, where she sits up there and she must use proper table manners because there is no one sitting in front of her, and we all get to watch her eat.
Yeah, that was not the highlight.
She has, she's made the head table, she presented a bunch of the awards on the award luncheon, and she introduced 2 or 3 of the sessions. So she's making a real contribution to the MML board.
Very nice.
And Tara was recognized as well at the conference.
Yes, she was.
And we have pictures of everything.
Great.
And
Which
with that, we
may
move
end
to
up-
the city clerk.
Mike, that'd be nice. No, I think I'm pretty good. Pretty much, you guys covered it all. I don't need to say anything.
And the
much as you
pictures-
wanna cover.
And this picture comment is a lie. So,
All I'm gonna say is photoshopped.
yeah, chief.
Whatever happened to what happens in MML stays in MML.
Evidently, that's not a rule
We're saying
anymore.
nothing, we're just alluding. We're just alluding to things. Just a little, as everybody knows, the police department is tasked with animal control, and today was a first. Normally it's cats, dogs, and some wildlife, you know. Today it was, we were chasing a goat around town.
Oh, great.
One end of Passover Road to the other, it was taken into custody and had just been fostered for the evening by one of Ron's department members.
It's funny.
Yep.
All right, city planner.
Yeah, I will say that one of the things that, back in 2000, when we started working on Pruitt's Point's development and started doing the original development plans, I didn't think there was any way I was gonna be here 23 years to see this thing end up. And I gotta tell you, from the perspective of what we do, you know, there are a lot of times that we'll see projects end, you know, and projects to their completion, but this is the first time that any of us have been here to see the completion of a TIP project. And quite candidly, that's just really cool. It feels really cool to, you know, have been involved with all of it. It's, you know, also great to know that so many of us have been here through a lot of the duration, Carrie and I, through the whole stinking thing. So, also, just a little throw out kudos to our park and our park folks out there. My daughter's 12U softball team was in desperate need of a practice location that had lights, and I called Nicole and she got them and us set up with a practice location twice a week with lights that are set on a timer. And the team, the coaches, and everybody could not have been more ecstatic, and Nicole could not have been better to work with. So
Cool.
I truly appreciate
That's great.
Nicole and everything she does, and our parks facility, which is absolutely fabulous. And last thing is, we were all glad that you went in person too. It was great.
For that part of staff that stayed behind, right?
Candidly, we're not real happy about it being here at like the other. That's just our own person.
That's good. That's good.
HR.
No, just a reminder that the employee health fair is tomorrow, sponsored by the city and the PR. It's located downstairs in the lower level conference rooms. That's all I have.
Okay. City treasurer. Assistant City Administrator. I know some of the folks have already taken some of your fodder, but hopefully you have some other.
I am regularly accused of stealing other people's thunder.
Regularly, there's a reason for that.
But Nicole is not here, so I do want to elaborate a little bit on what Alderman Mayrose said. We do have our 20th annual Osage Beach Fall Fest this Saturday. The lineup will be, we've got a children's comedian, Babaloo, in the morning. We've got our regular pie eating contest, which is always a lot of fun. That'll happen right around noon. And then we've got Fat Mike and the bartenders playing from 2 to 5. We have over 30 vendors. We have a few extra food trucks that are coming this year. We have a petting zoo. We have pony rides. We have some bounce houses. And last but not least, we have the Best Dam moniker that we've added to it in association with the CVB. So this will be the 20th annual Best Dam Fall Fest this year. Oh, cool. So I hope you guys can at least make an appearance and check it out. We're really excited about it. Obviously, we didn't get to do it last year. This is Nicole's first year that she gets to kind of put her little spin on it, and I know she's got lots of exciting changes that might be coming in future years. So we're excited about it, and we hope to see you guys out there. Thank you.
And we,
A goat for the petting zoo.
if you got, yeah, and would they like to take a goat back with them, you know, to wherever they go?
Get him a seal.
And Mike, I want to thank you personally for ordering the beautiful weather that you have coming our way for Saturday. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Not very many assistant city administrators could have accomplished that task.
Do the best I can, sir.
And you do a great job. Public Works Operations Manager.
Nothing for the board.
All right, building official. Airports. All right, Cochran Engineering.
Just a quick update on your Mace Road Phase 2B project. If you've been out there, there's some curbing going in and concrete work going on. Latest schedule from the contractor is first lift of pavement going down on October 15th. So that's the end of next week. So about the first 70% of the project hopefully will be paved by the end of next week. Perfect. That's all I had. Thank you.
Excellent. Good to hear. Thank you very much. All right, our business for this evening is complete, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
This is picking me up here in a few minutes. I don't know how long it's going to be before she picks me up, but we can talk about what.
I've got an empty jar to get you.
Yeah?
Gave to me full.
Is that right? It's empty already?
The beef, not the sauce.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I can't do that.
I asked Ron today, and I said, I heard rumors it was gonna be a hardware store.